To all the Japanese companies out there thinking of hiring Western executives, let the Olympus scandal be an example for you. If you put a foreigner in your company, at the soonest opportunity, they will backstab you just to save their own skin. They have no loyalty to the company. They have no loyalty to the country. Let me explain for those of you who don't know. Recently, a major Japanese conglomerate known as Olympus was exposed to have hidden serious losses for the last 20 years by one man, a British man named Michael Woodford, the former CEO of Olympus. When they discovered that he was not willing to play ball, when he started to ask too many questions about the losses that Olympus had occurred, they fired him. And instead of simply remaining silent, he spoke up, causing the shares of Olympus to fall by 75%. Not only that, he has now endangered thousands of jobs, as Olympus is now in a much weaker financial position. The only thing the board of directors at Olympus are guilty of is trying to assuage losses that have been incurred over the last 20 years. Olympus, like any other corporation, made mistakes, and they tried to cover up those mistakes. And while we can today say that that was an unwise thing for them to do, I do not believe that we can say that they are evil people for what they attempted to do. In fact, it worked quite well for 20 years, until a foreigner brought them down. And Michael Woodford, he only did it to save his own skin, so he could avoid civil or criminal prosecution, whereas the countless generations of Japanese executives and directors have stepped proudly into the shoes of their forebears and taken on that risk in order to preserve the company. But foreigners are not company men. They are out for their own gain. And at least those of you at home compare this to Lehman Brothers. There are some important differences. For instance, at Lehman Brothers, the people who worked there were out for themselves to get rich. They didn't care about anyone else. Whereas in Japanese corporations, they are out for the corporation. They put the self before the company. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. They put the company before the self. That is the Japanese way of doing things. And now Western papers are berating these Japanese companies for doing the right thing, for putting the company first, ahead of even shareholders. And I think that's simply admirable. You know, for Westerners to say that this is some sort of immoral behavior is condescending, considering that our government does the exact same thing. You see, here in America, when we have failing banks, we don't come out and tell people about the failing banks. We simply mark it up as a number, and then the government does everything it can to bring those banks back to health. But they never mention who those banks are. Do you see the parallels here between failing banks and failing Japanese companies? The directors and executives of Olympus tried to do the very best that they could to bring their company back from the brink. And all of this was destroyed by one foreign executive. The cautionary tale here is if you're in Japan and you're thinking about hiring, only hire Japanese.